Every day in the comments section of the How to Survive a Nuclear Bomb series, someone inevitably asks the question, I live X miles from a target. What would happen to me? So I took a road trip to Chicago to explain the effects of a nuclear weapon from 3 different locations in and around the city using 3 different types of weapons. I did so hoping you could apply the lessons learned to your situation. The effects of nuclear weapons are somewhat straightforward, and when you understand them, you can approximate for yourself what would happen if one ever detonated in your neck of the woods. For the first part of the series, we explore what would happen if a terrorist detonated a 20 kiloton fission warhead. A 20 kiloton nuke would represent what a terrorist might be capable of, but could also represent a North Korean or Iranian nuclear bomb. The 20 kiloton weapon just also happens to be the size of the 2 bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. For this series, I chose the target or point of detonation to be the Sears Tower, a well-known landmark that is very close to the center of the city. As we know, terrorists like destroying targets with symbolic value. As the tallest building in the world for a few decades, I thought this might be the most logical target for our would-be terrorist. We'll start by assuming this 20 kiloton weapon was loaded on a box truck, driven right up to the base of the tower, and detonated. Ground zero of a nuclear weapon is what everyone has in their mind's eye. Complete and utter devastation. Within nanoseconds of the detonation, the vaporization begins. Temperatures reach tens of millions of degrees. The base of the Sears building is instantly vaporized, and the blast wave shatters the rest of the structure inside of a second. The debris not flung away from the blast wave is engulfed in a fireball in the first 3 seconds as the expanding fireball rises to the building's former height. A good portion of the Chicago skyline crumbles as the blast wave topples skyscrapers. Virtually everything within a third of a mile from the Sears Tower is completely destroyed. Nearly everyone within this distance is instantly killed, mostly by collapsing buildings and flying debris. The few survivors will be helplessly buried in the basements of these buildings. The destruction from such a small weapon is so complete that cleanup could take years. 2.5 miles away is the Lincoln Park Zoo. For those spending a day at the zoo, what might they experience if a terrorist nuke were detonated at the base of the Sears Tower? The instant the bomb detonated, there would be a very bright flash lasting 2 or 3 seconds. Because the bomb detonated at ground level, the thermal pulse normally affecting people at this distance is absorbed by the buildings directly around ground zero. Had they been in the open with nothing between them and the bomb, it is possible that they would have received first-degree skin burns, similar to a sunburn and completely recoverable. After about 3 seconds, the fireball would become visible as it rises above the for now standing buildings, and those in the open would feel the tail end of the thermal pulse. The heat radiated by the fireball itself would feel like standing in front of an open oven door. While significant, the fireball would only be about 1/4 to 1/3 of a mile in diameter. At 2.5 miles, the shock front and collapsing buildings would be visible to the folks that reactively looked towards the blast. The initial radiation released by the bomb in the form of soft X-rays and gamma rays are absorbed by the surrounding buildings and atmosphere. A noticeable dose of radiation will peter out at around 1 mile from the detonation. With this small yield, virtually no initial radiation will reach out to this distance. Events would be happening so fast, it would be hard for the human mind to make sense of what is going on in real time. The blast wave would arrive at around 10 seconds with a deafening crack. But surprisingly, it will have significantly weakened. The only damage experienced at this distance would be shattered windows and small projectiles. The wind generated by the blast would be a brief gust of just 30 miles per hour. Injuries would be limited to those standing near glass or under falling tree limbs and other unsecured items. The whole scenario would be seemingly over to folks just 2.5 miles away in under 1/4 of a minute if it weren't for the fallout. They would be left to watch the rising mushroom cloud and the decimated skyline. Unfortunately, since this weapon was a ground burst, all the radioactive dust and debris sucked up into the mushroom cloud will start falling very soon, and if the winds on the surface or upper levels were blowing towards them, they would have only minutes to seek shelter before the fallout were to arrive. Almost 10 miles away, folks at the Loyola Park beach would be startled by the bright flash emanating from the city center to the south. They would see the same events unfold as the folks at the Lincoln Park Zoo, parts of the skyline collapsing and the rising mushroom cloud. The blast wave would arrive in about 45 seconds, but to these folks it would be not much more than a very loud crack. Some folks who are indoors and away from windows at this distance may be completely unaware of what is going on outside. the collapsing buildings would be heard in a low rumble. Here, very minor damage would occur. Due to atmospheric lensing, a window would break here and there, but only the very unlucky would be injured at this distance. Even though nearly everyone survives unscathed, the looming radiation is the biggest danger. A wind directly at them would give them from 20 minutes to a few hours, depending on the speed, to carry the fallout to them. Even further away, 25 miles to the south-southeast, lies Munster, Indiana Centennial Park. From the top of a former landfill, the skyline can be seen silhouetted against the horizon. Folks at ground level would not really be aware of what is happening as they saw the flash. It would take a minute or so after the detonation for the mushroom cloud to rise high enough for those at ground level to see. Even so, it is questionable if folks would recognize the mushroom cloud for what it is, as it would be very tiny and way off in the distance. 2 minutes after the flash, a loud crack like thunder and a low rumble would persist. The shock wave would be non-existent. Damage would be extremely limited to freaks of atmospherics with a cracked window here or there. Again, being a ground burst, the massive amounts of radioactivity being sucked up into the cloud could arrive on a wind from the north in 1 to 5 hours. And remember, we cover how to deal with the radiation in the How to Survive a Nuclear Bomb series. I bet it may be surprising to some of you that even though the very center of the city experiences complete and utter devastation, that some folks as close as 10 miles to a nuclear bomb might only experience a flash and a bang. Join us in the next part of the series as we take a look at what would happen if the superpowers got involved. In the next video, we take a look at a 500 kiloton thermonuclear warhead and its effects on the same folks. If you found this information to be insightful, click the like button, share the video with friends, and subscribe to the Tin Hat Ranch channel. Thanks for watching.